I am so excited today to have Dr. Idz on the Save Yourself podcast. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are going to love this. We're going to go over a few controversial topics, which you love. I think you're all about the controversy, not all the time, but I think people appreciate you myth busting. So thanks so much for being here.
Of course. No, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
So first of all, I wanted to say that everyone should check out the new book. It just came out, Saturated Facts, which is the best title. And how did you even think of that title? That is so good.
Yeah, no, it was actually my colleague who I acknowledged in the book actually. We were on a general surgical night shift and we were brainstorming ideas for the book at about 2, 3 in the morning, lying down on the sofas, trying to get a bit of rest. And yeah, we came up with some different ideas, food unwrapped, food for thought. And then she
Yeah,
just comes out with saturated facts. And
that's so good.
I was like, that could be the one.
I
And then,
love it.
yeah, since I brought it to Penguin and everyone just loved it. So,
We'll talk about this in a little bit about the US fan base because I'm in the US and I know a lot of
mm,
people in the US would love to get this. For anyone who doesn't know Dr. Idz, you should follow him. My brother, who is a gastroenterologist, sent me one of your videos a long time ago, and that's how I got to know you. Dr. Idris Mughal is an
yes.
NHS doctor with a master's degree in nutritional research and a board certification in lifestyle medicine. As a passionate advocate of preventive healthcare, he shares informative videos on his hugely popular TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook accounts. He lives in West Midlands with his family, but you're on the move, I hear. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about the background, because I think that if you guys aren't following it's Dr. Idz IDZ on TikTok and Instagram, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell us a little more about you. Where did you grow up? Where do you live? And a little bit about this transition that we were talking about offline.
Yeah, no. So, from the West Midlands, near Birmingham, in the UK, if anyone's familiar, about the location.
Did you grow up
Um,
there? Born and raised? Okay.
born and raised in the middle of England. And then I spent a good 7 years in Norwich, beautiful coastal city on the east coast of England. That's where I did my studies. I did a bit of work there as well. I did both my medical and my master's degrees there in Norwich. Fantastic city, love the place. And what happened was after I came back home into Birmingham, after having experience with nutritional research, dealing with large, databases, research papers, dealing with millions of data points from the Twins UK Biobank cohort is a very, very strong
Mm-hmm.
cohort for anyone looking to do some research. I then developed a, passion for kind of lifestyle medicine, how our food affects our health, what we can do to prevent and manage, chronic disease outside of conventional medical management, right? So I then pursued the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine board certification, which was fantastic. They have a lovely annual conference every year, which I'm hoping to give a talk at. 3-day conference of all amazing doctors that group together, healthcare professionals that group together from across the country. So what that really allowed me to do was appreciate the finer details, by which different nutrients, different lifestyle interventions, exercise protocols, the importance of sleep hygiene, stress management, even people that abuse various substances. So, alcohol, smoking, drug addiction, all of these kind of more intricate, finer details that you don't really have the benefit of diving into during medical school because medical school is so obviously so content heavy and you're
Mm-hmm.
covering so much. That's why I'm loving this new kind of focus I have now. And now I find myself giving lots of presentations, talks, podcasts, TV. I was on TV the other day. I posted a clip of it on my Instagram and TikTok if anyone's interested. And then I give various seminars and now officially an author. So things are happening very, very quickly. Things are very busy, but I'm loving being in the public health education space now.
Are you still working full time as a what do where do you work in the hospital, or what are you doing?
No, so thankfully I left full-time NHS work about over a year ago now. I do the occasional locum shifts in the hospital on my terms when I feel like I have some free time in the specialties that I'm wanting to work in. I do like to keep my foot a bit in the clinical space, but to be honest, as the time goes on, I'm more focusing on educating the educators and less hands-on in the clinical side of things.
So are you full-time Dr. Idz now? It's
Well,
school?
honestly, I think it's more than full time, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I'm
agree.
working more than I was when I was full time in the hospital. It's a bit, all encompassing, very tiring. You don't really get a break. I don't give myself any days off because I don't think I can have days off. So,
Yeah.
it's difficult, but I'm trying to figure out that work-life balance. I've got to travel to London tomorrow morning, leave at 5 in the morning. I then got to come back and then fly to South Africa on Wednesday. I recorded my audiobook over there. So like there's just lots of things happening, but I'm embracing the journey.
Love it. I'm excited to get into it. So, first and foremost, I think that one of the things that you do so well on the internet is that you myth bust. We all are pressed for time. We are looking for information. And if you go on TikTok, you are inundated with completely opposite viewpoints about the same topic. And there are posts, and you point this out, that go viral that
Mm,
have millions and millions of views that are completely wrong.
mm.
So tell us this just off the bat. Are there some red flags that people who are listening or watching who are like, what are the red flags that I immediately know that this person is doesn't know what they're talking about, or that I should do my own research? Like, are there some things that you see over and over again?
Yeah, good one. I think one that I like to point out early is people that blame single ingredients, compounds, foods for the reason that we've seen an increase in any chronic disease is completely unscientific. Like that's just fear-mongering, clickbaity nonsense that has no basis in science because, you know, I can't think of many or any chronic disease, well, lifestyle chronic disease to be precise, things like obesity, type 2 diabetes,
Mhm,
fatty liver disease, even some aspects of mental health illness like depression, which I talk about in my book as well, dementia.
mhm, mhm,
Any of these chronic lifestyle diseases, you cannot put the blame on a single compound, a single food, a single ingredient, because we have to understand that these processes are complicated. They result from a combination of multiple biological, psychological, social, environmental factors. Not everyone's from the same demographic. Not everyone has the same set of playing cards. Not everyone, has the same situation. So if someone starts a video like this is the reason obesity rates are rising, or this is the reason 300,000 or whatever millions of people die from heart attacks or heart disease every year, right? So like it's completely unscientific. If you hear that, you straight away know they're not actually interested in providing evidence-based information. They're not actually interested in presenting a balanced argument. And you can straight away kind of red list that type of person because it just shows you they're more focused on gaining traction than they are with actually presenting helpful and practical advice, right? So that's number one. Another one that is a very popular marketing ploy is the use of absolutist claims. So what I mean by absolutist claims are when people say things like, these are the five worst inflammatory foods for you, right? Or like, these are the three worst foods for your gut, right? Or even, these are the three best foods for,
mhm,
preventing diabetes, right? Whichever side of the argument you want to go on, regardless, using absolutist statements like that, worst, best, most toxic or most poisonous or
mhm,
whatever,
mhm, mhm,
this just illustrates straight off the bat that they're talking as if they're talking to hundreds of thousands of the same person, that they know their background, they know their medical history. A perfect example of this is if I said the worst food for inflammation is apples, right? Okay, so let's dissect that point. If we're talking about myself, who has no problem consuming apples, obviously they're not going to cause any, significant
Issues.
amount of issues, right? They're not going to cause any rise in any circulating inflammatory biomarker, not at all. There's no evidence of that. Now, if you applied that statement to someone that's going through a severe relapse of their inflammatory bowel disease, right? Because apples contain a lot of fiber per calorie, right? In that individual circumstance, apples might be pro-inflammatory for them because they need to lay off lots of fibrous foods, soluble fibers, insoluble fibers, give their gut a rest. And a lot of plant foods in that situation can be pro-inflammatory. So peanuts for me are a very health promoting food. They increase insulin sensitivity, they lower the glycemic load of an otherwise unbalanced meal, right? They can have lots of benefits. They're quite filling, they're quite, satiating. For someone who's underweight, peanuts are great in gaining weight, right? Because they're high in calories. But for someone else, they can literally kill them.
Yeah.
So to make these statements like these are the 5 worst foods for this or the 3 best foods for this, once again, there's no balance, there's no nuance being stated. And we run into the problem of we're falling out of the individualized approach to health and science, right? We need to be able to put in caveats, to insert nuance, to insert exceptions to the rule, right? We shouldn't be afraid of including these statements in there or these qualifiers in there, because that's how you gain the trust of the public. That's how you make the public understand that things aren't a one size fits all, that things aren't universally bad for everyone, unless we're talking about something like, trans and saturated fatty acids, or we're talking about something that is universally bad. Of course, yeah, there are a few things that
Smoking,
are
cigarettes.
yeah,
Yeah.
smoking, right? Excess alcohol consumption, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
whatever. So apart from those universal truths, we don't need to use phrases like these are the worst, these are the best. So absolutist statements, that's a big red flag. And the other one, blaming chronic disease on a single compound, single
Yeah.
nutrient. Those are 2 massive ones. Then you've got lots of smaller ones, which are like not being open to critique, being defensive when they get criticized, name calling, not engaging in scientific discourse. If someone's not engaging in discourse, then, you can tell straight away that their views they're dogmatic in nature. They have very black and white thinking. They have an internal deep bias that can't be changed. And that's a very dangerous thing to have or to be. If you're not open to changing your view, then you shouldn't be giving public health advice on any platform.
And then you say things like, people who say that they're doctors or experts at something, when people don't ever fact check that, they're
Yes.
like, oh, this person wrote doctor on their profile, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much it. And then sometimes I think you often point out like, but this person is not an actual physician.
Yes. So, it's the loss of we're in a pandemic now of losing domain specific expertise, right?
Mhm.
People think now that just because they have some kind of qualification in some kind of, health related field, it could be anything. It could be food technology, it could be health psychology, it could be, some random like I don't know, intervention that's not related to nutrition at all, right? Just because they've got a doctorate, just because they've got a degree, just because they've got some kind of a title, that makes them qualified to discuss all facets of like health and nutrition science. I find that very strange. It's like, people like Huberman, people like, chiropractors, William Cole, like all these people that I regularly have to just remind that you listen, don't claim expertise in a field you're not actually trained in. Even myself, who's got an additional master's in nutrition, who is a medical doctor, who is lifestyle, medicine certified, even I don't like to talk about certain things. You won't find me talking about, complicated neurology and how
Hmm.
the interactions of specific compounds relate to the physiology of the brain. Or you won't find me talking about complicated gastrointestinal disorders, right, that require like multifaceted, multidisciplinary interventions from a wide range of healthcare professionals. You won't find me confidently saying anything about something that I'm genuinely not trained in. Obviously, I can talk about neurology, I can talk about gastroenterology, I can talk about, liver health, but you won't find me being overly confident or overly sure in, the evidence base that I'm relating to. I will always say things like, what the evidence that I've been able to find seems to suggest
Hmm.
that this might be beneficial, this might be, but make sure that you're checking with your medical team if you have XYZ condition, right? Because I know firsthand when I get DMs from literally thousands of people who have been genuinely harmed by overly confident, uneducated, unqualified information, just like the other day when someone tried that cinnamon and orange pepper,
Yes.
orange flip-in
I
like
was just
constipation
gonna
drink,
mention that one.
right?
Yeah.
So like we just have to be more sensible, more mindful, and just understand that people's lives and people's well-being are genuinely at stake here. Don't just garner for views. Actually provide balance, provide nuance. Otherwise, I'll come for you, basically.
Yeah, that's true. But I also think that knowing this helps people because sometimes when I'm on TikTok and I'm looking at non-medical things like, oh,
Mm,
what is the best X, Y, and Z for, and I realize, wow, you can't trust things that go viral. You can't trust people who say they talk confidently, but
mm,
they don't necessarily either know what they're talking about or they're actually wrong. So it's
mm,
very important to know that sometimes people will have like degrees behind them or they'll be wearing a suit, especially these medical wellness talking heads,
mm.
who I'm talking about. They look so official that you want to believe what they're saying. So I
Yeah.
think that is a very, very good point. Like one of the things that you talk about a lot in your book in multiple ways is about artificial sweeteners. And I think it's a hot topic. And I know that people are still very confused. So, there's topics of weight loss and artificial sweeteners, gut health and artificial sweeteners, and mood. I think all of those things you discuss in your book. So I wanted to get your take for someone who's like, okay, give me the true story. What should I know about artificial sweeteners for my health?
Yeah, good. Complicated topic. Each of these domains, affects the blood pressure sweeteners on cardiovascular health, on cancer risk, on, gut health, on weight loss outcomes. They could all require an individual podcast episode. What I will say is the introduction of artificial sweeteners in the food supply is 100% a net positive on our food environment. And the reason I say that is because, I've done some educational work with the British Soft Drinks Association, other, organizations that are educating consumers on the safety and utility of artificial sweeteners. Well, what I will say is because of organizations like that, and because of introductions like artificial sweeteners, 7 out of 10 soft drinks now in the UK are low or no sugar, right?
That's
Zero
great.
calorie drinks. That is fantastic. 15 years ago, I remember the abomination of drinks that I would see in supermarkets, right? Sunny D, all these like full sugar Capri Suns, all these
Mhm.
like, full sugar fizzy drinks. And obviously I love them. I was young and all of our children and all of our family were loving all of these. But now it's finally becoming aware and apparent that we can simulate similar tasting products that give the individual a sense of satisfaction from their drink without all of the harmful consequences of consuming 400 calories in one drink, right?
Right.
So what I will say is the data is absolutely clear. It could not be any more clear. Dozens of controlled trials, if you look at Nima Dean McLean in 22, if you look at, meta-analyses by Hugo and colleagues in 2020, this is off the top of my head. If you look, there's plenty of other meta-analyses in 2021. There's a control trial in 2016 that I'll talk about soon, that all show when you replace the full sugar products with artificially sweetened products, it consistently, in controlled human interventions, leads to a significant amount of weight loss that can have tremendous benefits for your overall health. Because you have to remember, when you're talking about the healthfulness of a food or a product, you have to look at what is it replacing in the diet, right? You can't just take a product and be like, okay, this is healthy or not, because you have to look at what am I consuming this in place of? What would I otherwise be consuming, right? So if the question is, the utility of artificial sweeteners is to replace sugary products, that's why they literally exist in the food supply. They don't exist for any other reason, right? If we look at that demographic, if we look at that research time and time again, it shows tremendous benefits for weight loss outcomes. And when you look at weight loss outcomes, because the majority of adults in the UK and US are overweight or obese by definition, you then get downstream benefits for blood glucose control, for fatty liver outcomes, liver enzymes, for markers of systemic inflammation, for blood lipids, right, for anthropometric measures like visceral adiposity, like total body fat, like waist circumference, right? So you have to remember that what is it doing? What are their utility in the food supply? And you have to look at what are the possible downstream benefits of them. If you're not a sugary person by definition, then obviously consuming artificial sweeteners might not give you any additional benefits apart from the taste, right? Of course, because if you weren't the type to indulge in sugary foods, then it's not going to be fulfilling any kind of inert craving you have deep inside you, right? So in that demographic, sure, it could be neutral, and it might even be negative if you're particularly sensitive. You know, some people struggle with headaches from aspartame. Some people might get a bit bloated from sucralose, right? There are individual intolerances that are, true about any compound, any food, right? These aren't unique to artificial sweeteners. So I don't want to see people saying things like, yeah, they can cause gut disruption. They can cause, any single food can do that. Any single food, right? Red meat that has got no fiber, it gives me massive GI distress. Am I going to say, oh, red meat is bad for your gut? Well, no, I'm not going to say that because of my own experience, right? I'm going to look at what the evidence shows across hundreds of thousands of people.
I think someone said something to me, a physician said this many years ago, and it kind of stuck with me for patients. She said, if you're the type of person who doesn't eat a lot of desserts or is going for an occasional once a year, birthday, and you want to have a soda, go for regular. If you're someone who is obese, overweight, and consistently eating diet foods or consistently eating soda and sweetened foods, then it makes sense to do diet soda or diet products, artificially sweetened products, because that's going to be a net benefit for that person. And there's a whole spectrum of people in between, meaning which one should you consume? So I think what you're saying is for weight loss, and if it's filling a need, then these sugar-free, so artificially sweetened drinks or foods are a benefit. But if you're taking it just as is, like, should you be eating more artificial sweeteners? Maybe not. Like, you are probably better off not eating sweetened foods at all.
That's a good topic there. And I wanna address a very surprising, not surprising if you know why, but a very profound result from a controlled trial in 2016. I think it's by, I want to say Rogers. We can double check.
You can send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, great. So there's a control study in 2016 that took, I think, around 300 adult participants. They gave them an intervention. The intervention was about 1 to 1.5 liters of artificially sweetened beverage a day, every single day, right, for 12 months. And the other group consumed water for 12 months. Okay. Now, this was a controlled intervention, so they monitored their diets. Obviously, they tried to make sure that there wasn't a massive disparity in their dietary intake and their exercise levels, etc. What they found was the artificially sweetened group lost about 6 kilograms over the 12 months. The water group lost about 2 kilograms, right? So that's about 4 to 5 pounds. Well, that's about 15 pounds in
Wow.
the
Wow.
artificially sweetened group. Now, so what does this suggest? This suggests that even if you don't have a particular sweet tooth
Mm.
where you're replacing lots of sugary drinks and sugary, cakes and desserts, whatever, just having something to fulfill any kind of sweet desire, right, can have net positive benefits downstream because, for example, me, I do not go any single day without consuming a low-calorie, artificially sweetened drink. I don't. I barely
What's
even
your
drink water.
favorite?
We have a company in the UK called Robinson's,
Okay.
and they do something called a squash. So it's like a concentrated cordial that you
Uh-huh.
add to water, right? And it like dilutes. So
Okay.
my point is that since I've been having low-calorie drinks, I do not consume any chocolate, any desserts. I rarely, rarely have any ice cream. I don't consume, and I was a massive sweet tooth. I've got like three,
Mm.
four fillings because I ate so much sugar growing up, right? So it's just a really, interesting
That is
result
interesting.
where even if you don't consume that much sugar,
Mm.
it could actually subconsciously make you less inclined to look for, other avenues of getting that sweet kick, which could benefit your health further down the line. So I personally don't think it's accurate to say, like you quoted that
Mm.
that doctor
Mm-hmm.
colleague or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
who said, if you're just having the one-off, go for regular. I can't think
Mm-hmm.
of any scenario in which having regular is better than having artificially sweetened. Because like
Yeah, I see what
why
you're
would
saying.
you choose, like, if you like the taste, okay, by all means have a regular, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is if taste is not a concern,
Mm-hmm.
then why would you opt for 300 calories of just refined sugars? It doesn't make any sense to me unless you're straight after a workout and you're
Mm-hmm.
very tired
Mm-hmm.
and you want to replenish your glycogen. Okay, fine. But out of that scenario, I can't think of any scenario where regular, sugary drinks trump artificially sweetened drinks.
Okay, this brings me to a topic of, I asked you about your favorite drink. So I always
Yeah.
ask every guest a little bit about their personal. I know that it's everybody's very, very different and personal, but I think a lot of people would find value in knowing like a real life person who has a background in nutrition, lives a really busy life. What
Hmm.
does your day look like in terms of food and habits?
To be honest, I don't follow any kind of diet.
Okay.
I don't follow, I don't deprive myself of certain things if I want it. However, what I do try to do and suggest is always try to look for ways to include nutritious foods into your diet. I don't like the mindset of restricting because
Mm-hmm.
what that does is you're not actually improving the nutritional quality of your diet. What you're doing is you're taking out what you deem as being harmful foods, right? Whereas if, like, for example, I had half a punnet of green grapes just earlier today, I love my fruit, right? I try and get lots of berries in my diet, pomegranate,
Mm-hmm.
kiwi, grapes, lots of low calorie, high nutrient dense foods like fruits. That's my big thing. And also, just by just by coincidence, this is on my desk as well. This is some nuts.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit seasoned in some nice, like crispy coated peanuts
That looks
with
good.
almost like a sweet chili like seasoning, right? So this is just out of coincidence they're here right now. And the point I'm making here is if you try to incorporate or look for ways to include healthful things in your diet, then subconsciously they will start to displace more health harming, dietary patterns or foods. And because they're so nutrient dense,
Yeah.
they're generally low calorie, they're generally minimally processed. So we don't even have the stomach to consume, lots of refined sugar, saturated fat, ultra processed, hyper palatable, sweet tasting foods, right? So my normal day, I don't have any kind of set routine. I just try to make sure I eat some fruit a day. I try to make sure I have some healthy fats a day. And beyond that, I eat red meat probably once every 2 weeks, once every week. For me, it's a bit of a gut kind of, I'm a little bit sensitive to red meat, so I don't like how it makes me feel. And obviously, I want to try and keep my saturated fat to as low as possible. So I don't follow any kind of strict protocol. I don't have a Huberman six style protocol, nonsense, unpractical, expensive. I
Cold
don't,
plunge, sauna.
yeah, you know.
What does your workout look like?
Well, sadly, for the last 3, 4 months, I've been traveling around the world, so I've not really had some kind of routine. If anything, I try a 1 time a week strength training session and go for several walks in the week. I was a very, avid and very kind of, strength training, resistance training orientated
Mhm.
person back in the day. But since doctoring, it's been very difficult. I do want to get back to some kind of baseline strength that I did have back in the day. So, yeah, I don't live a perfect, a model or textbook healthy life. I try not to stress myself out over it, but I am cognizant and conscious of making sure to include a couple of healthful habits, every day if I can.
But you're just right off of the publication, right? This is when was this? When did this come out?
March 14,
March 14th. So we're just a
a month.
month out. This has probably
Yeah.
been a very, very busy month for you.
Yes.
Do you sleep adequately?
Uh, less than I would like, especially during the writing of the book. Also, I do mention it in the book as well that many nights I found myself writing, ridiculous hours, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I've got to leave for London at 5 in the morning, so I'm only going to get about 5 hours of sleep tonight. So, I've got a whole chapter on sleep. Sleep is very important, but I need to start listening to my own advice.
And also, once you're a little bit out from the book, I think you'll have some time to recharge. And maybe when you go to South Africa, you can take a little time to take a vacation.
I
So
hope
that will be
so.
good. So tell us a little bit more about where to find you, where to find the
Mm,
book. I know you are traveling and have a crazy schedule. So I want to thank
mm.
you for your time. I think people really find value in both listening to you today and your videos. And I think the basic point that you're driving home is, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Remember that nutrition is almost like an art. It's very nuanced. It's very
Yes.
personal. And some of these things that you talk about in the book, there are some universal truths like
Mm.
sleep, like getting enough fiber, getting enough,
Yeah.
walking in, like you were saying. And those things, if you stick to those basic universal truths, all
Mm.
the rest of it is kind of optional if you want it, these superfoods and these
Yeah.
supplements that can do this and that. So tell us where to find it. And I know that this is available in the UK very easily, but how do people
Yeah.
in the US find this?
Yeah, don't get me started. It's been an absolute headache. There are some third-party distributors that are selling it on Amazon.com.
Yes.
But every other day or every week or so, I get someone saying it's sold out. There's no more copies.
Yeah.
So, if you're able to find it on Amazon.com, that's great. I know it's available on Amazon Canada, Amazon Australia, Amazon UK. If all of those things are difficult, there's also the Kindle ebook version. There's the
Mhm.
audiobook version, which I'm narrating. And there's also the Waterstones link in my bios of my social media, which do ship internationally, and they've not let me down so far. They've always got stock. So,
Like you can borrow it from a friend. I actually borrowed this from a friend because I told you it was going to be a long time for it to ship.
oh
And I
yes,
wanted to get a chance to read it before I talked to you today.
yes. No, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I hope others can perhaps ease their mind over some of the fear-mongering content that we see. And I hope people use it to look more into critiquing the validity of certain claims being made.
I know you have a school or some kind of like
Mm.
what is that? Can you tell everybody about that? Because I know you mentioned it to me before, but I wanted to make sure that people know about that. Do they want to dive deeper?
Yeah, great. So I have the School of Dr.Idz, which is an online education platform subscription where we have, 4 exclusive, professional, longer, more in-depth, detailed videos a month, where I go into lots of different topics on insulin resistance, how to manage it, PCOS, weight loss, how to critique research as well. So how to
Mm.
actually interpret research. So my kind of audience or my members are, healthcare professionals, doctors, dietitians, pharmacists, health coaches, and just anyone who's more interested in a deeper dive of certain topics that aren't really appropriate for social media, like
Yeah.
me doing a 10-minute video on how to critique a single nutrition paper.
It's not going to
It
do well on
is
TikTok.
is it's not about doing well. It's about is it worth my time and energy? It's
Yeah.
not, because I would rather it reach those who are genuinely interested and willing to invest in that kind of information, right? These videos take me an entire working day, a whole
Yeah.
working day, 9, 10 hours, right? So like I want it to be useful for those who are helping others, who perhaps work with clients, work with patients. And I've had my 1 year anniversary just a few weeks ago. So, I've got a 50% annual discount sale on at the moment. So if you're
Perfect.
interested in deeper, and I mean deeper, research and higher level research, then by all means, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. If you aren't following him, you should definitely follow him. It's Dr. Idz on TikTok and Instagram. And I'm excited to share your both your book and your message with the world. I'm excited to hear all about your travels in
Thank you.
London, South Africa, and all the fun things that you're doing. And we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much for your
Okay.
time. Had a great conversation and looking forward to getting this episode out. Thanks.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.